Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. Well, Brendan Cahoon, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. We're definitely looking forward to having a conversation with you. We had a chance to talk before and get some information about just your career path, what you're doing at Catchpoint as VP of Customer Success, but great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Alex, for having me. Artie, thanks for having me as well. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. And really interested to know a little bit more about what you guys do at Catchpoint and also what you do in your role as the VP of Customer Success.
Sure. So Catchpoint, we provide visibility into the internet delivery chain. So we help our clients understand what their customers are experiencing, or maybe what some of their other digital assets might be experiencing, or their employees may be experiencing, either when they're trying to get to either their content or as an employee. How am I able to access the tools I need to be able to get my job done? So we essentially provide monitoring to companies to allow them to optimize costs, to increase revenues, to reduce downtime, reduce the time it takes to resolve issues. We try to take really the outside-in perspective in providing visibility for clients. And then as for me, I head up the customer success team. Our goal is to really allow our clients to see success and value out of the investment they're making in Catchpoint. Our focus is on getting our clients to renew with us each year and ideally expand with us into either other types of products that we provide or other use cases that monitoring can help there.
What have you seen? So if you guys are doing, customer engagement and, have this SaaS platform, are you doing the drinking your own champagne, like using your own product to obviously expand the customer experience and improve it on your end too?
For sure. I think both internally as well as just what our customers are monitoring, as well as our total network that we have, we're constantly drinking our own champagne and looking to see what we can do to also educate ourselves to then be able to be out in front of our end consumers. I'd say digital experience monitoring is a very nascent industry. Gartner really just coined it a year or two ago. Monitoring has been around forever, application performance monitoring, network monitoring, and really where we're coming from as the internet delivery chain continues to expand, become decentralized, become more distributed, our focus has really been more on that outcome and what is the actual outcome of all the different hops that transactions do.
Yeah, and it sounds like at Catchpoint, you guys are very tech forward. You guys obviously are in the analytical KPI space because you're not only creating a tool for experience monitoring, but also collecting information to be able to report back out. So for you in your individual role, what are the key KPIs that you like to track for your team? And it may not be, the traditional KPIs that we think of, or it may be the traditional ones like CSAT and NPS and things like that. But what do you guys monitor and what do you look at on a regular basis?
Yeah, we try to observe a ton. So we've got your traditional customer experience survey stuff like NPS as well as CSAT. We benefit from having quite strong scores with each. Our support has won several awards for the past couple of years through the Stevies. We stare in the CS world at a lot of things that's coming from usage and interaction with our platform. So we leverage a tool and a good partner of ours called Pendo, which sits on our platform and helps understand different user experiences, user journeys. We maintain a pretty large data lake. We've got an application development and engineering team that helps us combine that with our CRM platform, Salesforce, with usage. So thus as CS, we can get a pretty strong sense and data of where a client is, as well as understand where we need to be jumping in. So for example, client interacts with a new feature for the first time ever, obvious need for enablement. Maybe that's an opportunity for us to do that within an application, or as a CS person, I might want to be reaching out. When you sign up with Catchpoint, you're also subscribing to a set amount of monitoring. And so we're also making sure you're consuming what you plan to, right? And so has that deviated and maybe we might have some risk with the account, or from you're doing a little bit more, maybe there's an opportunity for growth, or as well, I want to make sure you're aware you're doing a lot more than you had expected. So we pay pretty tight attention and have a pretty good visibility.
And drilling into that a little bit more, it seems like you've got a lot of data, a lot of technology and integrations in place. Do you have a strong team to support that? How many people do you have that are dedicated to customer success with regards to like analytics and maybe integrating tool sets together and making sure that everything's flowing into that data lake?
Yeah, so we've got a team of about 3 engineers that really are just focused on that data lake for us, really focused on making sure that data is making sense. We put in a lot of ad hoc requests for new reports or new types of solutions, at least as a CS team. To speak a bit more just about the greater CS team that we have here at Catchpoint, we got a full team of CSMs as well as customer success engineers. So we really take a white glove approach with our clients. We also provide 24/7 omnichannel support, provide professional services, and then have also tried to get a bit more operational and strategic with some of our functions. So we've got customer success operations, so someone who I partner with tightly, who really manages our whole tool stack and is very close with the data that we're leveraging for usage. Customer marketing, which has been a recent hire for us to actually attack white space that we get from a lot of this data. You know, what parts of the software should they be using based off of their persona that they're not, as well as customer training. So we've really started to develop more programmatic on-demand training programs and hired a few folks to get that moving for us.
For the people that are, you know, listening to the podcast that might not be at your level yet with customer success, support, you know, service, let's take a step back and just, you know, how did you get to where you are today? Like with the experience at your previous company and just how you landed into this customer support role and, you know, what that journey looked like.
Sure. So my previous company was a company called FactSet, where I held a number of roles, both pre as well as post sale. Great company. I gravitated towards leading post sale teams as it combined a lot of different passions for me. You know, certainly there's the sales side, and I really believe in the compounding factor of subscription-based sales and the impact that can be had there from your customer base. I'm a problem solver at heart. It's my passion. It's just what I've always loved to do. And my dad instilled in me that, yeah, you can solve problems a few ways, but there's the right way to do it and the best way to do it. And so I have a bit of that in me as well, which I think blends nicely into CS. So that was an organization that sold to the largest asset managers in the world. They had acquired all of those large asset managers. So it was really about growth through adoption, through cross-sell, through upsell, through more of the product. That was 80-90% of where the growth was coming from at the time. So intense focus on customer success, unique in the sense that actually the entry role for everything outside of engineering was their CS like associate role. So everybody grows up with a CS mindset and mentality, creates a really awesome and unique culture. So that's really what got me started and continued down the CS experience.
Yeah, it's always interesting, you know, whether it be a father or a mentor to kind of help guide you into like, well, there's a right and wrong way to solve problems. How digging a little deeper into that, because I love the mentor stories, right? Like how has your father or other people helped get you to where you are? And like, what are maybe even some of the methodologies or key takeaways that you still use today that you learned from before that help in this problem solving, fixing these challenges, you know, mode that you're in?
Yeah, so from my dad it was all about math, I guess, from the get-go and solving math problems on long car rides. So I've always just been attuned to math, I would say, and that's sort of at the core of it, right? And then I've always just sort of had a passion for solving problems. And so I've also just had what's the word I'm looking for? A big appetite, I guess, just for data, right? An affinity towards data, be it, I guess that's math driven, but my past role was very data based, and it was all about bringing in different data sets to glean insights from it, right? And so I sort of flip that now, and we think about segmenting as well and creating different buckets of clients or use cases or personas, overlaying on top of that data and streams of data, not just point in time data. How has data changed over time taking a look at things like percentiles and our long tails and understanding a bit more on how we can act. So I'm heavy data driven. My mom also, we'll stick with who raised me, I suppose, right? My mom's extremely selfless, maybe to a fault, apologizes for things she doesn't have to apologize type person. But I think that just also has increased for me a heightened sense for empathy, as well as wanting to make sure experience are as optimized as possible, I guess. So certainly a lot from my folks, a lot that I gained from leaders at my previous company and from leaders from this company as well. Those are sort of some of the things. And then I guess maybe another thing I'll point to, and especially since Catchpoint, that I've really adopted has been the challenger sale mindset. More of a sales focus, but in a nascent industry that we have here, it's a lot about teaching, and it's a lot about being confident and looking to change minds with the problems that we solve, and why Catchpoint's the right way to do things. Monitoring from where your end users are is the right way to do things. And so I've really adopted that mentality a lot in terms of how we should be going about CS and being successful at CS.
Drilling a little bit more into maybe user journeys and customer journey mapping, for a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast, they may not have a tool set like Pendo or the ability to really map these things together. What were some of the things that you have found, after implementing these tools that were very insightful? Things like maybe churn for customers or users happens if they're inactive for 30 days, or the week after the contract renews, they're heavily using it, and that's the best time to re-engage with them and make sure that they're going to carry through for the rest of the year. Like, what are the kind of key insights that you guys have found having those tool sets that you could kind of give as tidbits to people who maybe don't have those today?
Sure. Onboarding is by far the most important stage of any renewal cycle. If you don't get up and running, especially with a consumption-based tool like ours, you're going to be in a world of hurt come 12, 24, whatever the contract length is, and you're coming up for renew. Renewal certainly is one well outside of the 3 months before the contract is set to expire, and onboarding by far is that most critical. I think engaging actually even before then, pre-sale and setting expectations of what's to come, and building urgency as well, looking to bring in more than maybe just the end user or even that first line buyer, and bringing in a higher up, the business owner who's making this decision that's leading to this purchase, so that they have skin in the game, so that they have an understanding of the importance of getting up and running with Catchpoint to help us with driving that. A obvious one, but a simple one as well, as users. So we flag any accounts that have less than 3 users, and some of our bigger ones that pay us a good amount of money, or actually just relying on us for API. You mentioned something earlier. We are a data company to start with, right? And so they could not be coming into our platform at all. And that's actually a problem for us, even though there may be plenty of end consumers, because they're not experiencing what's new. It's hard to push out new things to just an API consumer for them to see that there's new things within the tool. But if we have less than 3 people, we're clearly single-threaded in today's enterprise software game. You've really got to be integrated in a number of different levels, not just multiple.
I like that idea of making sure you're not single-threaded, right? Especially as you're working with enterprises, and the deeper you go, and this goes on the pre-sales and sales side too, is collaborating with all these different business units to get the problem solved on their end too. As far as collaborating on your end with your colleagues, how does that look when you're coming together and someone has an idea, you're trying to get a certain project push? Like, how does collaboration look for you guys to get certain things solved for?
Yeah, so we're still a relatively smaller organization. I think we're now about 275 employees. We're a very flat organization, and I think it starts there. We've got leadership that is on the front lines with us often, that are on recurring regular calls with middle and frontline employees. So I think the culture that's set is it brings that in, right? We also are a organization that always is consistently looking to bring people in to bring change. I was looking for an organization that would allow me more latitude, more
Yep.
ability to enact change. I was almost overwhelmed with like the expectation that I was going to be enacting change, and looking for that transparency, but also recognizing there's a flip side to that coin. There's also the transparency of what you're not doing or not getting done. So
Yeah.
I think it's an organization that really pulls people in and wants to get good ideas, recognizes one of our values is humility. We recognize we don't believe we always have the right solution. We're looking for ideas to constantly.
Yeah, and with a team that size, it's really important to make sure that your employees are just as happy as your customers and end users. So what are you guys doing from a employee engagement standpoint? Do you guys have, leadership or pipelines to help people grow in their space or in their product knowledge? But what are you guys doing to keep your employees happy?
Sure. We've got an outstanding chief people officer that I partner with a lot. We've been doing a lot of things focused around wellness. So the organization got a bunch of apps for folks, from Aptiv to Headspace, and running a bunch of just different corporate challenges to get people moving, get people focused on their wellness. We do a lot of just different virtual events, be it a weekly or bi-weekly, all hands with the whole organization. There's usually trivia on Thursdays. There's yoga on Wednesdays. There's a simple just meet and greet where every half an hour each week we jump in and they break us out into different groups. So those are some things just from employee morale, what we're trying to do in light of the pandemic. And then from I'm having a brain fart here. The second part of that question was in terms of career growth. We also have a great individual in our sales enablement team. So we've got constant education going out to the whole field org. We meet once a week for about an hour to review recent content, go over some win stories, refresh the field. In terms of career paths within our organization, certainly within CS, we've had folks start in SDR roles and BDR roles, move into a CS function. We have a few different levels of growth within our CS team, working with some of our smallest customers in an associate's role, all the way up to an enterprise type role, working with our biggest customers, and certainly also through management or back into sales as well, where we also pivoted people back that way as well. So our opportunity, though, is we're a very small organization, and there's all sorts of different places for you to grow within the.
Yeah, I think that's an advantage too, right? Being able to be nimble, being able to say maybe a BDR doesn't work out for that specific role, but if they're a good talent, there's another spot they might be able to fit. Maybe it's a CSM role that's a little less sales oriented, like pressure sales oriented, right? And I think it's great having that nimbleness, if that's even a word sometimes, but being able to have that flexibility. So when you came on board, they gave you, I wouldn't say carte blanche, but you're coming in there to make change, to disrupt a little bit, bring in some new processes, potentially new technologies. What would you say was the challenge of coming in there and making changes? The change management seems to be a big red flag, or a big, sticking point for people, where it's hard to get change done and it's hard to do it effectively. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, as much as we're open to change, we also want to make good business cases too, right? And so having sound and solid business case, it's just isn't the challenge. It's I guess the work that goes really into any investment, and I think that was certainly what was up front. One thing that has aided it is we also rely heavily on third-party analysis. So we partner with a great firm called Iceberg IQ, and they conduct a ton of just interviews for us, both on the win-loss side as well as on for the existing client side or churn clients. And we're able to glean a lot of analysis. And certainly getting that validation from a third party has enabled a lot of the change that we've brought on, be it some of the controls around consumption within the tool and making sure clients aren't running away with how much they're monitoring with Catchpoint, and they're in control of the platform, to things that we're starting to get going with community and hearing from customers they want more of learning from each other, and really starting to get programs and bringing customer marketing as part of that. And so a lot of it has also been role-based which certainly adds an element. In CS, we touch everything, right? And so a lot of these roles aren't even in our department. It's convincing, hey, marketing, we need to invest here, right? Hey, training, we need to invest here. So, it's also working with individuals. Say, hey, I need you to take on this individual and start managing them for the overall customer success motion.
We just got off a podcast recording with someone who is also in a similar industry, software as a service, and helping with efficiencies. And she talked a lot about creating a sense of community, not only with like community forums, but also the ability for your end users or customers to interact with each other and solve problems in a collaborative way. Are you guys doing that today? If so, how are you doing it? And how do you foster that community? Is it a gamification where the more posts you do on a community forum, the more points you get, things like that? So talk to us a little bit about how you leverage community in your users.
Sure. So a few different things that we've done just in terms of having regular sort of conferences, some focused on specific personas. One particular in the monitoring industry, site reliability engineering, or SREs, is a big persona that we work with. We've really tried to build up that community with different events, Slack channels, et cetera. We're starting to evaluate, in full disclosure, a community platform to bring on to sort of foster a lot more of this thinking about gamification. We also are about to launch some user groups, which are going to be use case specific, really just bringing people in. As one person from Catchpoint really just moderated and said, hey, talk about this and go have at it. We do a lot though, just with connecting clients, really as part of the whole journey is sort of a focus on community as well as advocacy. And hey, we work with someone over here who has the same role. I think it would make sense for you guys to talk about it. Or, hey, Brennan, we're looking to jump into this. Do you guys have anybody who's doing this? And really looking to make a lot of personal connections. People don't want to buy from a vendor. They want to buy from someone else, a peer, really, from who's in their space. So try to focus a bit, not just on our product, but also craft and career. And I think community is a big catalyst for that.
Yeah, Alex, I think that's the second time or maybe third time we've heard of Slack being a great tool to pull people together, like an open Slack channel with all of your customers. And it's very low tech. It also can create a really instant customer experience as opposed to it being more formal where you have to log into a community forum or some sort of help suite or backend tool set, and then you bookmark it on your Google Chrome, and then you forget about it and never go back, or you only go back when you need something, and instead of it being the other way around where you want to go in there and help other people too. So I feel like Slack is a good collaborative tool for the people listening if they want to create just a low touch sense of community.
There's a rabid following too by any Slack user. We also integrate with Slack. So not just from a community standpoint, we send alerts, right? Because that's just the native platform that a lot of people like to work out of. So
we have a customer that we support, and they have Slack and Teams, MS Teams, and the greater organization uses MS Teams. The developers use Slack, and there was something from the higher ups saying that they're going to decommission Slack, and everyone's going to have to use Teams. And there was an uprising. Like there was literally like
for sure.
There was a virtual burning of trash cans in the street because people loved Slack so much. So so they didn't go that route. They still have Slack and MS Teams. They're trying to figure out how to integrate the two together so that it's a little bit more collaborative across the whole organization. But there's a cult following behind Slack.
We're not as severe. We are a team shop, but a lot of us have Slack just because a lot of our clients are on and we communicate. That's their preferred means of communicating. So, and a lot of those people would probably want to start that uprising if you want to send any of those community leaders over here.
Yeah. Well, speaking of technology, right, and Slack being a big piece for community and just project management and developers getting to communicate with each other, how do you see the technology that you use to help enhance the customer experience and customer support just on your side, and like tools that you love, tools that you're looking to possibly implement in the future? What does that look like for you, and like how do you see technology playing that role?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great data, right? And we've got a lot of great visibility. What we're starting to evaluate would be a more formal customer success platform that would really be a good workflow container on top of that, do a lot more from an accountability standpoint, better clear recognition of what we need to be doing for our clients, where they're at in their journey, just a better hub, I would say, for the customer success team, rather than sort of an amalgamation that we have now of things within Salesforce, email alerts, or just different dashboards. We've just kind of got a few different places a little bit to join. So we're looking to really just clean up, but then optimize that workflow. And then it's not just what do I have to do as a CSM? I can then do a lot more to automate with technology, maybe some email notifications, some check-in reminders, or some type of in-app notification or something along those lines. So we're starting to evaluate that. One tool which we've been getting immense value out of is Gong. There are other tools like a Chorus AI, really call recording software. There's a lot to transcribe. So simple use case, I don't need to take notes while I'm talking with my client. I can focus on my client. As leaders, we're able to jump in and listen in on exponentially more calls, way more understanding of the customer's voice, opportunities for enablement. Hey, everybody needs to repeat this and do it this way. Coaching opportunities with the individual on that call, but also just reference too. And I think from the customer's perspective, you have some turnover on the account from an account manager or a CS person. You're able to pull this up and just hear the customer talking about their needs rather than what someone else has entered, hopefully okay within Salesforce. It's just been a really great tool for us and continues to pop up different use cases for us. So I think for us, it's continue to get more intelligence and make that intelligence more usable is sort of the name of the game.
I think that brings up a good point, especially with Gong or the Chorus AI, is that now it gets in the realm of, well, how much AI literally like is put into the process where you're tracking sentiment and the customer, kind of parlays over to the customer effort score and being able to use that data to really automatically say, okay, here are all these transcripts that we have from Gong or whichever. Now let's run it through the machine to say, okay, what's the sentiment? Where, the tonality, things like that. Are you guys looking towards more AI in the future and just kind of continuing to snowball that technology?
Yeah, I don't think we've thought about it yet with Gong and sentiment, but certainly love a lot of just the indicators and things that can be gleaned there. I mean, I think every organization is thinking about AI or automation, and we're thinking about that where you sit on a ton of data, right? And we also sit on a ton of just internet health data, not just our customers. Just because of that, we're aware of key internet infrastructure. If there's cloud services that are down, content delivery networks that are having issues that a lot of services rely upon, we can then probably enact a lot more for our customers, right? So thinking about, all right, we know all these customers are leveraging this provider, we know it's down. Being able to be a bit more proactive with our helping of clients is a big thing that we're thinking about. So things along around those ideas, and then just continued ways for us with our own CS data, how do we optimize it more and create action?
Switching gears a little bit and going back to technology slightly, how do customers communicate with you? Is it mainly inbound? Is it outbound? Is it scheduled appointments, training sessions or user group sessions? What's the kind of mix? And then have you seen any change due to the pandemic or people, now working from home more? So, I'm physically at the computer more than if I was in the office. At an office, I'm, walking to get some water or going out to lunch. But today, I am like plugged in. So there's so much more data. And I've seen my behavior change in the way that I communicate with the companies that I work with. I've been more apt to contact them via live chat versus, picking up my physical phone because I'm just strapped to the computer. So how do you communicate with your customers? How do they prefer to communicate with you? And then also, has it changed in recent months and years?
I now become uncomfortable when I get an invite and there's like a number to call. I was like, number phone. I'm so used to Zoom. So we provide, I would say most of the interactions from our customers to us is with our support team. The predominant method for that has been our chat. Voice has certainly gone down, as well as email is used pretty heavily. From a CSM standpoint, our interactions with our customers, I'd say, have also skyrocketed. There's been just a lot more desire to interact with us, which is a positive, and certainly. So we often are doing some type of a regular cadence meeting with our clients, bigger clients, there's just a lot more going on, use cases getting developed, maybe a little bit of support mixed in there with these sessions. We do regular business reviews with our clients as well, that we try to get onto the calendar at least every 6 months, ideally a bit more frequent. But we're also noticing like the appetite to sit in and learn is less, as more of, I want this, give me this, right? I think clients are a bit more aware of what they want to get and don't want to hear, I'd say, anything else. But certainly Zoom has kicked up. I think demand for asynchronous on-demand learning is continuing to increase as they're distributed. It's actually been a bit more challenging to get our clients all together to get on a call with us as they're distributed than it is really just for us. We're flexible. So I think there's just a lot more desire for video and on-demand training. So that's definitely been an uptick.
How about for those inbound contacts? Do you do anything with regards to routing based off of persona or maybe customer segments or lifetime value, so that you're getting the right agent or team member to the right person? Maybe it's a CSM, or maybe it's just a net new contact to you guys. How do you guys triage and help with routing?
Yep. So we're a Zendesk shop, and we've got a number of just different filters built in there as well. We heighten our sense of urgency around accounts that have a low health score with us. So we have our own proprietary health score that we do for our accounts, but falls into one of the lower two, it flags as a hot client, potentially something that, all the CSM is going to get that ticket immediately. We also will flag those who are coming up for renewal, as we just want to have a heightened sense of aware based off of what the question might be, right? It could impact the renewal. We just want to get flagged on that. We incorporate thus all of our Salesforce segmentation information as well, some of which makes it really clean, and have a bunch of widgets that we've programmed in there to easily escalate. Our support team also has different SMEs on it based off of the different products that we have. So certainly with IM, it's pretty easy to change. Again, phone hasn't been too much, and our clients are usually pretty fine if we say, hey, let me get an expert, they'll give you a call in a minute.
Yeah. It's interesting, we talked about Zoom a second ago, and just everyone's getting, I guess, in a degree, some Zoom fatigue, right? With all these meetings. I like it because it's a way to see people that you don't get to see all the time because events have shut down. How was it for your organization? Last March, everyone gets this notification, we're all working from home. Was it, oh, no problem, we had everything set up? How was it for you guys as a company, and how you handled it? And then what did you see from your clients on as far as like their preparedness and how they handled the whole, work from home change that we've all gone through?
Yeah, so prior to, I think it was March 17th, we were largely distributed amongst Boston, New York, as well as Bangalore. We have a really large campus and a small office as well in London. And we've had remote folks forever, especially on the sales side. My team's been distributed. So we've been heavy Zoom consumers for a long time. I just used to sit with most of them in Boston. I'd look this way, and then I'd look back at the screen a few times. So for me, I think we've been able to pivot pretty easily as we were sort of Zoom based. And for me, at least as a leader, it's been a lot. I'm used to it because I'm speaking with them anyways, but also as a team, I feel it's made the team more of a team rather than we've got our Boston team, which Brendan's working with, and then, everybody else. So I think just cohesion on our team has only gone up as part of it. You certainly lose a lot of the cross-functional, though, culture and vibe that you have just from seeing people, humans, in different departments. And so that's definitely been a challenge for us. And we're doing a lot of those other things that I talked about to try to bridge bridge that gap. But then there's also, I have so many meetings, there's so much data to look at. How do I fit that in as well, which I think is a challenge for all organizations. Certainly, I think you see folks that are in the city or in an apartment, might share it with a couple of people. I think that's where the pandemic's been the biggest challenge for employees, at least just in terms
Yeah.
of working space, having a quiet spot. Some of us may be going mad just being in our homes, but being in a
Right.
tiny apartment sort
Yeah.
of amplifies that. For our customers, we largely deal with devs, engineers, folks who are more comfortable working, behind the computer remotely anyways. So I think for them, it hasn't been too much of an issue, that they usually have better setups than we do.
Yeah.
But, again, they're distributed. So I think just especially folks who are more focused, say, in like a network operations center or a NOC that are used to working together, staring at dashboards, getting on different phone lines, learning how to manage that distributed, I think has been a challenge.
Yeah, I think post-pandemic, when we start to get back to whatever the new normal is,
Yeah.
it's going to be a nice blend of both. But it's going to feel really weird having to go back into an office if you do have to, if your role requires you to do that, and just sitting there at the office and doing the exact same thing that you could have been doing at home. It seems like a little bit more effort to just get up, get dressed like the proper way for the office, commute in, especially if you're in a big city, and then get there and really be just as productive as if you're at home. But I can't wait to have lunches again with people, and there's something to be said about seeing someone face to face versus over Zoom, and give them a handshake at the end of a meeting or closing a deal like that is much easier and better. So we're coming up a little bit on time, and we always like to kind of end our show, and sometimes it lasts a little bit longer because we get into kind of a cool story mode, but we like to end our show asking you, as a customer of lots of different companies and brands, you have customer experiences as well with those brands, and it's really easy for us to identify and remember the bad experiences, and it's a lot harder for us to remember the good experiences. So when was the last time you had a good experience with a brand as a customer or consumer? You don't necessarily have to say the brand, but you can if you want. And then also, why was it a good experience? What caused it to be, turn it from a neutral or negative experience to a good one?
I like the positive spin. I guess just quickly for me, like my expectations now as a consumer is that there's a digital experience available for me and it's going to work, right? And so like that's like my standard. So like I'm a huge Amazon person. It works. It's amazing. And so I guess that's just a bit of background there. Great CX experience for me recently. It was actually with one of the vendors that we're looking at for a CS platform. And I'd seen a bit of the tool already. Was actually relatively impressed with the app as well as the rep, just hearing him previously. And there was a quick sidebar, and it was just like a personal conversation. He had a hat on. I was trying to figure out what the hat said. A few other people on the call had hats on, and I didn't have a hat on. So there was a bit of just sidebar commentary after that. And the conversation wrapped up. But following that call, maybe the next day, I got a message from him saying that he had sent me a Red Sox hat based off of that little part of that conversation. And I was the only one without a hat. And I just thought it was extremely smart and empathetic to just think and connect with me on something that had nothing to do with the conversation, but showed to me this person's listening. And it had a big, I'm not a baseball fan anymore, which may be sacrilege being in Boston, but just super appreciative, right? It didn't matter, And so the tool they were using for that is Sendoso. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of those. We just took on a tool called Thanks, just to send out something personalized. And I think as we're all now strapped to our homes, we talked about getting back together already with humans, like these human elements, I think are what people are valuing, at least I've had.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I love it when you get those little like out of the blue, oh, that was nice. You weren't expecting it, but they do listen, right? The good sales reps and people that are really trying like there to listen to what you're saying and make it fun and not make it so transactional, right? They're making it's still human to human, and even though you're not a baseball fan in Boston, that's okay. You probably have to be a Tom Brady fan though, although he left.
For sure.
I don't know. But Brendan, it was an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast. We were excited to have you on, and we had a good conversation, lots to talk about. And like I already said, we could spend hours just talking about bad experiences, but thank you for sharing a good one.
Thank you guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brendan.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.